With less than 3 weeks to go before the NFL draft, the free agency news is largely dried up. But don't fear, we still have plenty to talk through today with Underdog's release of a Superflex tournament. We'll talk through our favorite strategies for attacking this unique format and our favorite values at quarterback. This is ADP Chasing. Let's go.
Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Handjob.
Fix your sight.
Jamar Alpha Play Chase.
Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally this boys. You're right.
Pat, Davis, good morning, guys. How we doing?
Morning. First ADP chasing in the morning.
Yeah, it's not really the morning though, is it? I mean, 10 o'clock in the morning, bro. That's not really the morning.
Wow, that's not morning to you? That's definitely morning to me.
I get up at like 5:30 in the morning, dude.
My God.
Wow.
I've already worked out, had a coffee, hung out with my dogs, read and played video games today by 10 a.m.
That's a nice little day you already had.
I was also up at 5:30 this morning. I did like a camping trip last night, so I woke up this morning at 5:30 and skied down a mountain at 6 a.m. and then grinded these charts all morning. So it was.
Wow.
I wish I skied this morning.
That'd be pretty sweet, yeah.
Yeah, skiing is top notch.
It is quite fun.
It was nice. But
much to Peter's chagrin, I did a Superflex draft in the sauna this morning as well. Pete hates that. Pete he doesn't want you to know this one simple trick that you can habit stack your bad habits with your good habits too, to just have them cancel each other out.
Now, given your attitudes about 1.5x listening, I'm surprised that you like this because it seems like you're trying
my brain. No, my brain is broken. I never the supposition has never been I'm speaking down from on high with an unbroken brain. It's just that it feels like that's an easy way to not break my brain. Like some things I just feel like are unavoidable, you know. But I don't know. But many people, posted the ship chasing or ADP chasing in 0.5x, and I sounded ridiculous. I just whoever sent us that, thank you for that. That was like a legitimately hilarious bit.
Yeah, I listened to that it made me feel like I was like tripping on something when I listened to you in 0.5x. I was like, what's going on? I don't 100%. Like this.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, are you still doing cardio club stuff, Davis? Are you drafting on treadmill or whatever, or how are you?
I mean, I still do my cardio, but I'm not what I've actually been doing these daily MLB drafts on Underdog. They've really got their hooks in me. I've got my red badge. It's
oh wow.
It's not good, man. Yeah. And what's sick is the badge bros who have a channel in Peter's Discord. I mean, I just feel like they win these tournaments every single day. And it's certainly like they're grinding it pretty hard. They're doing a lot more entries, but these guys have like hacked it. Like this is like a version of daily fantasy sports that is like beatable. Like people are beating it without computers, which is pretty gnarly.
I was listening to the beginning of your pod with Pete, and you guys are kind of getting into DFS and feeling like the boomers now that we're like, no, there's too much math.
We are, yes. We
it's
like
fun to be on the other side of that.
I'm now in that generation of being like, why all these like everyone knows about sims. You all know about optimal probability. Like back in my day, people didn't even know if guys would be playing. People would just be clicking guys who were not even active.
Dude, when we were starting in fantasy, people were skeptical that like math would help. They were like, you gotta watch it. You can't use math.
Yes, that was a common thing of like, I wish fantasy sports was more about watching the games and having takeaways as opposed to like what the numbers say. Like that, like when RotoViz started, people hated RotoViz. Like there was a community-wide like everyone who worked for ESPN and Yahoo and all these other independent sites were like, that's not how fantasy football is done. Like that sucks,
Yeah,
it is now.
And I kind of get it. I mean, there is something fun to like, if you're a casual fan, to watching a game and then thinking, oh, I can identify like, oh, that player looks really good. I can have my own takes about it without doing research. So I get it. Like, it's definitely fun to watch games.
Oh
and
yeah.
fire off takes. So it makes sense. I get where it's coming from for sure.
Well, now we're gonna get washed out here by the computers. They're coming for us. So now I'm not. Now I have a lot more empathy for the previous generation.
Yeah, the simulation stuff. I've like, with some of the research I've been doing, I've gotten people DMing me saying like, "Oh, you should, build some simulation in R, Python, or whatever." I'm like, I think people are overestimating. Like, I can do stuff in Excel and take some averages, some basic formulas, but man, if someone can figure out how to put together a good simulation for this stuff, that's way above what I can do, and could really take this to the next level.
Someone is going to. I mean, people are going to be able to start running sims for best ball contests, and they're going to be setting up bots to draft in these best ball contests, and fairly soon that's who we are going to be playing against.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's interesting. I don't know a ton about poker, so I can't explain this in detail, but I was having a conversation back and forth with someone in the Ship Chasing Discord, and they talked about how when Sims got into poker, it completely changed what even really sharp people thought.
Oh, poker is terrible now. As someone who has been a lifelong casual fan of poker, I mean, it's horrible. It's not fun to listen to people talk about anymore. It's really not even fun to watch anymore because people take so long to make their decisions and it's kind of ruined it, to be honest. I would say a vast majority of people would say that Sims have had an adverse impact on it as a whole, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The thing is, like, even if the game gets more solved, I think there's something with best ball where there's so much variance in it. Like, you could solve this game and you still might not win. You know what I mean? Like, if you're just doing smart enough strategies, I think you'll always have a chance. And for me, it's always going to be fun to draft, I think. So hopefully best ball never goes down that path completely. But anyways, shout out to Tyler for the $5 donation. Didn't wake up till 9 a.m. today. My day's productivity, not creator. Appreciate that. That donation. And yeah, speaking of productivity, let's get into the debate today. Let's talk about Superflex. Hopefully give you guys some actionable stuff for your Superflex drafts. So I'll lay out like what my initial read is on this tournament. I did some quick research. This is not like my final word on it, but I'll sort of lay out how I'm thinking about it, and then definitely want to get your guys' thoughts. So I just did this analysis looking at, okay, how does Superflex scoring actually work? So you can see here that for Superflex, you basically have the quarterback twos competing with the wide receiver threes on a given week in the Superflex spot, and then other positions, running back threes, wide receiver fours, tight ends are farther behind. So your Superflex each week, I think you can kind of think of it as coming down to a quarterback or a wide receiver. Again, there's only two starting wide receiver in this format, which is a key distinction. So that wide receiver three has a decent shot of getting into the Superflex. Here I looked at the past 10 years. If you just rank quarterbacks 1 through 24, rank wide receivers 1 through 36, which player is going to score in the Superflex each week. Again, this is slightly simplified. Like, this isn't a perfect way to look at it, but I think it's close enough to how this will actually work in real scoring. And you see that quarterbacks essentially come out in the Superflex 80% of the time, wide receivers around 20%. I was a little surprised that wide receivers score in the flex that much, but thinking about it more, it makes sense if, wide receiver threes essentially get to score in the flex each week. That makes some sense. And then the next thing I did is looked at the flex scoring. So now you have to take out the players that would have qualified for the Superflex, and then look at which players would score in the flex in the Superflex format. And this is dominated by wide receivers. Again, just the element of, having only 2 wide receiver starting spots versus 3 in the standard format just means that wide receivers are going to, dominate running backs in the flex a little bit more than they would in the standard format. So that's a lot of information. Let me try to summarize and and explain to you guys why I'm going through all of this. It seems like a lot. Essentially, in the standard format, you need one starting quarterback, 2.5 running backs. Like I'm basically calling the flex in the standard format, half running back, half wide receiver. That's a whole nother topic, but I think that's close enough to write. And then so you have 2.5 running backs, 3.5 wide receivers, and 1 tight end in the standard format. If you just make the simple assumption that, hey, you should roughly like allocate draft capital equally across like starting spots, then you get this 2.5 scalar where like you have 8 starting spots, you have 20 roster spots, multiply that by 2.5. And this is like roughly what I think how many roster spots you should allocate to each position. And again, this kind of looks like the standard build that people do in standard leagues, right? Like 2.5 quarterbacks, 2.5 tight ends, something like 6 running backs, something like 8 to 9 wide receivers. Like I think that's generally what people
it comes
do.
out basically exactly like what people do. This is
exactly.
It's actually really interesting that it works out this smoothly because this is like exactly how people draft.
Yeah,
Intuitive
exactly.
drafting, bro.
So I think there is something to that like, you know, it's roughly, if we assume that people are drafting roughly optimally, like I think it's roughly optimal to allocate like, the same number of roster spots per starting position, right? So if you guys are with me there, then we can apply that same logic to how the Superflex format works. So in this, I'm saying you need 1.8 quarterbacks because, again, quarterback fills the Superflex 80% of the time. So that's how I get the 1.8. Running back, you just need 2.2 because it only fills the flex 20% of the time. Wide receiver, you need 3. I'm getting that from you need 2 starting wide receivers. Then it fills the Superflex 20% of the time roughly, fills the flex 80% of the time roughly. So I'm calling that 3 starting wide receiver spots. And then again, 1 tight end. So if you apply that same 2.5 scalar to this, you get something like 4 to 5 quarterbacks, 5 to 6 running backs, 7 to 8 wide receivers, and 2 to 3 tight ends. So that's my argument right there that like, I think quarterback is so this gets more complicated, right? Because you can't really just draft 5. If every team drafted 5 quarterbacks, like there's only 32 starting quarterbacks in the league. Like every team.
No, but that's the wrong way to think about it. I think thinking about only 32 available guys generating points at the quarterback is the wrong way to think about it. I'm team 4 quarterbacks, I think, after doing a couple of these, because there's a huge drop off, and then people start, basically people are like, okay, I got my quarterback 1, and then I got, then there's even kind of that second tier, and then there's this whole tier of Sam Howell, Jacoby Brissett, Baker Mayfield, Will Levis,
Levis seems
Taylor
like a value
Heineke,
to me.
Desmond Ridder, yada yada. Mac Jones, Brock Purdy. By the way, Hendon Hooker, worst ADP in fantasy football history. He like literally is not going to play a snap.
Just he tore his ACL.
I think people don't know. My guess is probably people do.
When did he tear his ACL?
In the Alabama game, not the season was. It was like week 10, basically.
Got it. So he's like kind of on the Jameson Williams timeline, sort of.
Yeah, but as a quarterback who's like,
but he's a 26-year-old rookie quarterback. Like,
This
guy's not. He's not playing. He's not
Jameson Williams draft capital.
I would say the 2 best values I did. I've done 3 of these. I think the 2 best values I saw at quarterbacks were Baker, because I think minimum you're getting 8 games of Baker. No disrespect to Kyle Trask. I think Baker. I literally think you even have outs of like they bench Baker for Kyle Trask, cut him, and then he ends up starting 2 games for the Raiders or whatever. Like I just kind of think that's Baker Mayfield is Ryan Fitzpatrick now.
I like that.
Maybe not as fun, right? Maybe.
Well,
not as fun.
Fitzpatrick wasn't fun at times. There
were some stretches. People still remember like the 6 touchdown game against the Texans and the Buccaneers stuff. I mean, there were some stretches where Fitzpatrick was brutal to watch.
Yeah.
And then Bailey Zappi is hands down. I mean, I would be taking him every single time in these. I do not. 1, I think there's a chance that Mac Jones gets traded. 2, I think there's a chance they just bench him outright. And 3, what universe are we living in where Bailey Zappi didn't start at least 3 games? I just don't.
Yeah.
I just don't see it.
I want to. So yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I want to get into some of the individual players later, but just to like quickly finish my argument, and I think I'm with you, Davis, that I want to get like 4 quarterbacks because. So I made this. I kind of like arbitrarily made up these percentages, right? But I kind of grouped quarterbacks that are getting drafted into 3 categories. This is their odds of starting weeks 15 to 17 if they don't suffer a new injury. So I'm not predicting injury here. Obviously, I know that Josh Allen isn't 100% because there's a 10% chance he gets hurt or whatever, right? Like I'm just saying injuries, we're playing Madden, new injuries are off. I'm factoring in injuries of guys who are already injured like Kyler and Stafford, but new injuries are turned off. The guys on the left, I think there's basically 16 quarterbacks that are more or less a lock to start in weeks 15 to 17. Again, if they don't suffer a new injury. Then I think there's about 10 quarterbacks that have very high odds of starting, but I can't quite call them locks. Like Lamar has the weird contract thing. I think Goff and Geno, you got to factor in the odds of them drafting Richardson or Levis somewhat. You know, Russ was so bad last year. I'm not completely ruling out him getting benched.
They like Stidham.
Yeah, exactly. So those guys, I think, they'll have very high odds of starting. If you group those 2 pools together, that's only 26 quarterbacks. And again, there's 12 teams in each of your Superflex leagues. And I think there's really only 26 quarterbacks that like I feel very good about their chances of starting weeks 15 to 17 if they're healthy. I want 3 to 4 of those guys because I think I'm just going to hammer my opponents in the regular season. If on average my opponents are only getting 2 of those guys and I have 3 to 4, I'm just going to hammer them with points during the regular season. Having that extra quarterback, I think, is going to be so helpful for advance rate. And then in the playoffs, I think like having 3 quarterbacks stacked up, like when you have to win consecutive tournaments, 15, 16, and 17, I think is going to be super valuable. Like Leone's research showed that having 3 quarterbacks stacked up in 1 quarterback leagues could be really helpful from a ceiling perspective. So I just like can't see how in Superflex that doesn't even, become more valuable. Again, I haven't fully crunched the numbers and all this, so this is a little bit more speculation, but man, I think you want 3 to 4 of those guys, and if you can't get 3
to 4, hang on, because to get 4 of them, like, isn't that 4 of your first 5 picks going to quarterback?
Okay, yeah, so that's right. I think maybe 3 to 4. I'd say I want 3 of them, and then I probably want 1 of the Will Levis.
I'm thinking
Tannehill.
I'm thinking literally the exact reverse. I'm thinking you take 1 of the 100% guys, and preferably one of the ones that has, 26.5 point per game ceiling, Burrow, field, whatever. And then instead of giving up premium picks of very high ceiling running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, you take 1 of the 70% guys, 80% guys, Stafford, Pickett, Jimmy G, Anthony Richardson, and then 2 of the 10 to 40% guys. That to me, that feels intuitively, that was just what I
like
thought
that
would be the
better.
best strategy. Yeah.
That feels better to me because it's a 260 team final. So you got to think how many dead early round picks am I okay having in the final round? And any more than 2 early quarterbacks means you have at least 1 completely dead pick. You're saying this guy's definitely not hitting my final week 17 roster, which I think puts you at a pretty significant disadvantage in a 260 team field.
Yeah. So where I'm thinking with that, I totally get that argument. And again, I'm saying that this take, I think I would say I have like 70% confidence in it. I get your guys' pushback. Where I'm coming from is a couple angles. One, like leverage. If you only have 1 like stud quarterback and he gets you to the finals, he's likely to be very chalky, I think. And your stack with that quarterback is also likely to be decently chalky. So I think having multiple like high upside stacked quarterbacks in a Superflex format, I think has the potential to give you like even more leverage than it would in a 1 quarterback league because 2 of those guys can hit your lineup in each week. So say you have three of these top 26 guys, like you could sneak in a low owned Kyler, Marquise Brown stack that, no one has. So that's point 1. Point 2 is just like the opportunity cost stuff. Like I totally get, like, I'm all for in your first 2 picks, just going 1 quarterback and then taking and an elite running back wide receiver in the second round, maybe even an elite running back wide receiver in the third round. But then once it gets to that fifth and sixth round, like the 2x2s of taking like Bryce Young and then taking a running back wide receiver where like the Tannehill Ritter types are going, I like that 2x2 a lot more than taking the running back wide receiver there and then taking a stab on like Howell, Ritter, Tannehill. Like these guys, I just don't feel good about starting. Like I actually think where these like 40% quarterbacks are going is not that cheap. Like Brock Purdy in the 80s, Sam Howell at 100, Tannehill at 100.
Right, but there's a huge gap between the 50% guys and the 40% guys in ADP, like gigantic.
Yeah, so some of these guys I do like I'm with you there, but like you're not gonna like the quarterback ADP is so volatile. Like you can go into it making a plan that like I really like this Baker value. Someone gets desperate at quarterback, they reach on him like 30 picks ahead of ADP. Like I see this a lot. And again, just to round up my point, like the running backs and wide receivers that you can get in this format at pick like 120, like are still pretty good. Like you can get Quentin Johnson at 120, you can get Bateman at 120, you can get Brandon Cooks at 110, you can get Charbonnet at 110. Whereas like the quarterbacks that are going there, like Tannehill, like Howell, all these guys, like I'd take the skill position there and take my quarterback a little bit early because I don't think the drop off from running back and wide receiver in like the 50 to 60 range is actually that big to the running back and wide receiver in like the 110 range, if that makes sense.
I mean, it does make sense. I mean, maybe part of it is, I think maybe I disagree with the idea that it's a bad thing to have like a chalky quarterback stack make it to the final or whatever. Also, I'm not like jamming stacks nearly as hard right now as I am going to be in June and July, right? Like there's just so much in flux. Like I feel like
yeah,
that it's just going to be kind of random, right? I mean, like we all kind of think Anthony.
The values, there's going to be so much value.
Right. You're much more likely to get value teams than really heavy team stacks through to finals.
And Leone's got another part of his article coming out. He's teased that basically getting ADP value is pretty massive as well. There's different ways to kind of crack this nut. So I tend to think that you're most likely, I mean, this seems pretty obvious, I think, right? You're more likely to get crazy values the further away from the season we are because the market's less efficient. So
yeah, like you might get like Sky Moore, like Sky Moore in the 18th round or something like that. Like
the wins that's definitely gonna win it for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember like that was one of the ones I like right when they first opened Best Ball Mania.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I just got Sky Moore with my last pick. I already won $1 million, dude.
Call it, dude. So what I did a draft yesterday. I did Lamar Jackson at the 9th pick. I did Bryce Young in the 5th round, and then I did take Trey Lance in the 6th. So
I like that.
And you guys know I don't really like drafting Trey Lance, but I figured like, okay, in the 6th round, the potential, like if he hits, he's like like maybe a late 1st round value the way these guys are going. You know, like Dak goes in the late 1st round, Deshaun Watson goes in the late 1st round. So I'm like, if he is the starter, then the payoff actually is pretty massive here, where I don't feel like it's necessarily massive in one QB. But that allows me to then have like, elite skill position players that I was able to take with my 2nd and 3rd round picks. And that's the thing that I'm just trying to think through, like when I get to week 17, which, odds are I won't, but when I do, how am I going to be able to take down a 260 person field? And getting Tyreek Hill, Chris Olave, Nick Chubb in between my 1st and 2nd quarterbacks feels like really powerful to me. So to me, I'm like, I want to push it at quarterback as much as I can and then not get locked out, because if you do get locked out, you're dead. So I guess I'm willing to sacrifice maybe some advance rate, because I think, Sam, what you're saying, you would advance more teams than me. But I think your teams with like 4, like if you were to take like 4 in the first 6 rounds, I think those teams are like really, really struggling in week 17, most likely, because you just, you're sort of fading like an entire group of elite skill position players.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
And you're probably not lining stacks up. You're not getting premium stacks if you have 4 quarterbacks because their best teammates are going to be gone.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. 4, maybe like it depends how you do it. Like I think I do if I do the strategy of I pass on quarterbacks in the first 2 rounds, then I think I want 4 of these guys. If I take like a Lamar or I take a Josh Allen or I take Mahomes, like I don't know if I so say I pass on quarterback in the first 2 round and then I do like I don't know Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, and then like Stroud and Bryce Young. I think I actually would want to do that to try to compete.
It feels tough to me because I do think like if you hit on like Jacoby Brissett he went and pick 150 in the draft I did yesterday. I think there's a good chance he's the starter by the end of the season and maybe by midseason. And like there's gonna Bailey Zappi, I think it's a great Gardner Minshew. I obviously like Anthony Richardson a lot, but like they might not draft Anthony Richardson.
I mean, Gardner Minshew might just straight up start 17 games.
He might start 17 games.
It's in the range.
Like if you hit on Gardner Minshew, then you're like it's such a huge addition to your team. And then if you have structured your team to benefit from hitting on a pick like that, meaning you didn't take those quarterbacks like overly, like he's slotting in as your quarterback 3 or your quarterback 4, but your quarterback 3 wasn't super costly, then like you're gonna like if you make it to week 17, you have a huge advantage over the rest of the field. And I think there's going to be teams like that in that 260 team field. If you show up with this robust quarterback room, it's more of a floor play. So are you like you could potentially get lapped by guys?
Yeah,
the Minshew's coming in filling their super flex, and then they've got like 2 elite guys that you don't have.
Yeah, I hear that argument, and I totally hear that. What I'm trying to think through, Pat, is like I'm with you. If I get to week 17, I would much rather have like the 2 elite quarterback team with the elite skill position players. What I'm trying to think through is like, okay, don't take the position of like, let's say we're in week 17. Take the position of like, hey, we're in week 15 and I have 3 like good stacked quarterbacks who are going to start like guaranteed to start weeks 15 through 17. I really like my odds of winning 3 consecutive tournaments more.
I like your odds of winning 2 consecutive tournaments. That third one's going to be tough.
But
that
the third
one's going to be really tough.
Yeah. I don't know. So I think it's a tough question to answer. I totally hear you. I
agree with you. Like I think your odds of actually advancing in weeks 15 and 16 are going to be higher than what I'm suggesting because you have to win 1 12-person group. And right. It's 2 people advance from 12 and then 2 people advance from 12 again. So it's like, you're going to have to put up a really high score, but you don't have to put up an insane score.
Mm-hmm.
In week 17, like, it's not just that you might have to score more. It's that like there's like so many more teams that you're fading. It's so many. Like now you're like dealing with like in your 12-person group, Zappy, it has a good week that slots in and unlocks this. Creates a situation for a team that passed on quarterback early for their skill position players to come in. That guy might not be in your group. Because I think it'll be random enough who these late quarterbacks are that actually hit. But in the final, those teams will be in your group.
Yeah, I hear you. And like the last point I'll make, and then let's talk which guys we like maybe on the right-hand side. That's kind of the most interesting guys to talk through. The last point I'll make is like, again, the 2x2s. If I'm taking like Bryce Young in the 5th, and then, at pick 110, I'm taking Zach Charbonnet. I'm like very confident that both those guys are going to give me points. If you're taking in the 6th, Jerry Jeudy has the same ADP basically as Bryce Young right now. If you take Jerry Jeudy and then take Ryan Tannehill is going in the same place as Charbonnet, like the odds of Tannehill just being a 0 are like 50%, right? Like, so what I'm saying is that
if Tannehill's the starter for the Titans this year, he probably scores as many or more points than Bryce Young.
Maybe that's true, but like, I think. Do you agree with my speculation that Tannehill's odds of starting weeks 15 to 17 are like 50-ish%? Like even if he's healthy, you think that's higher?
I think that's way too high.
You think that's too high? Pat, you're saying?
Well, no, I think it's pretty binary. I think they either draft someone and it's like 0, or they don't draft someone, and I think it's like 90%. Without an injury? Who's starting? Willis? They're not starting Willis.
I think Yeah, Josh Dobbs. I don't know. Okay, maybe the Tannehill, like, my point is that, like, so many of these quarterbacks, though, that you're taking from picks, like, even Brock Purdy at, like, pick 80, he could easily be a 0. He could give you something, but he could easily be a 0. Like, all the quarterbacks you're taking from pick, like, 80 to 180, like, half of them are just straight up 0s, whereas, like, the running back and wide receivers you're taking there, like, particularly up to, like, pick 150, like, I'm pretty confident about the running backs and wide receivers at least contributing to my team in that range. So I'm just saying, like, I think the 2x2, like, once you think about it more, it's like you're locking in the quarterback early, and then, like, you can still get a contributor from running back and wide receiver later. Whereas, like, if you lock in, like, the Jerry Jeudy type of pick 60 earlier, like, sure, that's pretty good. But then you're just taking risks on, like, straight up 0s at quarterback. Like,
right. If you can
later.
outscore a 6th round wide receiver with a 9th round wide receiver, why take on all the extra risk at quarterback? I get that. I think that the picks that jump out to me is, like, the worst are probably that, like, 2nd to 3rd round group where, like, you're giving up really, really big opportunity cost at, like, Daniel Jones. In the draft I was in, it went Christian McCaffrey, Travis Kelce on the turn, then Daniel Jones at pick 14, then Cooper Kupp, then I grabbed Tyreek Hill, then Dak goes. Like, I don't like Daniel Jones versus Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill. It seemed like give me the elite receiver, man. Like,
Yeah.
I will figure quarterback out later. Good luck with Daniel Jones.
Like, I think this is the key. If you were to draft one team, you had one team and your goal was, we said, okay, you got to make the finals with this team. I think I would rather get 3 of these quarterbacks who we have close to 100% or 90%, right? So maybe you take Herbert and Lawrence, or maybe you take Tua, Derek Carr, and Matthew Stafford, or something like that. But if you're doing 25 teams, 150 teams, whatever, and you're trying to win, 0.1 Kerranes, I think you are far more likely to run into super teams doing the risky strategy and going all in on Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder, Brock Purdy, Kyle Trask, whatever.
But play to win with your one ticket, Davis. Don't just hope you limp into the finals. Play to win. Draft the way you're saying.
That's not the way people think, though. Because the way we have these discussions is we talk about teams as insular units, right? We're talking about lineup construction for one team and what would be quote unquote optimal for one team. And I mean, realistically, very few people draft that way. Very few people are drafting just one team, and you got to think about because you can cover more combos that way, right? So maybe Kirk Cousins, Anthony Richardson, and Sam Howell is not a good combo, right? Maybe that combo, the way that the points end up being distributed, is a bad combo, and you can't win that way. But maybe Bryce Young, Russell Wilson, Bailey Zappi, Sam Darnold is the nuts, and the way those points are distributed.
They score the same amount of points, but it's just the
the way they're distributed is perfect, right? And you actually add up this and the skill position players you layer in with them. Because I mean, I probably learned one thing I learned that I can't forget drafting these. It was insane. So we went back and we did this in Pete's Discord, and we looked up the highest scoring players in week 17 at every position in every round, right? So round 1, who scored the most points in week 17, round 2, all the way to 18. And if you had drafted the perfect team for week 17 scoring, so literally the highest scoring player in every single round that was like a viable team, you wouldn't have even advanced. You would not have even gotten out of your pod if you had seen week 17 scoring. So if you'd had the box scores and you would have known the point distributions, if you would have been drafting with the almanac, you would not have even advanced. You would not have even gotten there. Maybe you would have and it was even if you had gotten a team through, if you just miraculously made it through and you got in your week 15 pod, it was like the week 17 team did almost nothing in week 15, right? The perfect team.
Yeah. So that there is multiple layers to this. You have to get there. So Sam, I think Sam's focused more on how do we get there and make sure we have enough quarterback scoring and make sure that we can have one of our top players not score a ton of points in week 15 or 16 and we're still fine, which is super valid. But I think there's a point at which you are kind of playing with one hand tied behind your back if you put too much in the quarterback position.
Sure. I certainly agree with that. There's definitely a point. The last thing I'll add to this debate is I have some bad news from people. Like, there's going to be quarterbacks starting in weeks 15 to 17 that aren't even on on the right hand side.
That's
now.
like to our point, though, right?
No, I don't think it. So I don't think
it is.
If I have 3 to,
it's our 20th round pick, dude. I just lapped you with my 20th round pick.
No, but like I'm saying.
No, but
a lot of guys
he's saying like Josh Dobbs.
Okay, let me give you some guys who started in week 17 that would not have made this list if we did the same thing last year. David Blau, Brock Purdy, Joshua Dobbs, Tyler Huntley, Sam Ellinger, Skylar Thompson, Nick Mullins, like Baker Mayfield, Mike. Like, I mean, you can go on and on. Like, there's so many guys that we can't even predict they're going to be starting.
Well, we would have predicted Baker Mayfield, just not on the Rams.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Okay,
we thought for sure he was starting.
I will be predicting Baker Mayfield to start a Week 17 game every year for the next. I mean, this dude could be tossing. He could be on the San Antonio Brahmas or whatever, and I'll still be predicting him to get into an NFL game by Week 17.
So is Jarrett Stidham not getting drafted?
Yeah.
No.
That seems kind of like a fun 20th round pick.
Yeah. See, dude, I think we're solving the game here. I think the move is to treat, because this is something that playing a lot of Superflex Dynasty, Kerrane, you're going to know this as well as I do. The guys who end up you getting picked up and the guys who end up generating points for you in Superflex Dynasty leagues, to the point that Sam just made, it's insane.
Yeah.
Like you might blow 50% of your fab on Bailey Zappi. I mean, I did last year.
Yeah.
I blew so much fab on Bailey Zappi. And the point is, I think people, actually to the point of Sam's charts, people sort of treat quarterbacks statically, but quarterbacks actually get injured about as much as, maybe not as much as running backs do, but they get injured quite a bit.
They get injured, yeah.
And they, the value of those replacement games is quite high in this format.
Yeah. So why I think that the injury stuff helps my argument is because it's like we can take stabs at the Kyle Trask, the Heineke, the Huntley, but we're just going to be wrong about like which of these backup quarterbacks actually do get starts. Like we can make a case for it now, but we're going to be wrong about it. So like you're saying, like maybe it's easy in a managed league in Superflex to pick up like David Blau on waivers and he'll get you 13 points when he starts. But like those guys aren't going to get drafted. So if I just have like more guys who I feel very confident starting down the stretch.
Are you telling me to get even weirder with my
yeah, that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing weirder.
Yeah, are you hearing like I gotta scroll down even further?
Yeah,
you can take
Sam, what you're saying, like that point, I think if we're playing on drafters and we're just trying to score the most points in the regular season, or not the regular season, just the whole fantasy season, then I think, your point's like pretty unassailable. Like you need to have the quarterback slotting in regularly. But I do feel like, I know I'm not as likely to hit when I take Gardner Minshew, or, certainly when I take Jarrett Stidham and hope, Russ gets himself benched by the end of the year or whatever. Like, I know that that's most likely to be a 0 for me. But especially with like the Stidham pick, or even like the Brissett pick, who's going at pick 150, if that is a 0 for me, okay, I can take a couple zeros. I can take a couple zeros even in the week 17 final if it's that late. What I can't do is take a 0 from my second round pick, because my third round pick was also a quarterback and my first round pick was also a quarterback, and only one of them can make my final lineup. Not getting anything from your second round pick, I think, really, really screws you.
Not to do this, but didn't you get nothing from your second round pick on your team that won $2 million in the final week?
I did, but I got a huge score from my first round pick, who was a running back. And
that's fair.
Had I known, like, I think it would have, you would have put my odds way lower of winning if I went into the week with Saquon injured.
Sure.
Right. It's the fact that he didn't score, I was able to overcome, but it still would have put, knowing that ahead of time, I think still gives you significantly less odds of taking it down.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I totally get your point. I'm not confident I'm right or I'm wrong. I don't know. I hear you guys' point. I think let's get into maybe talking about, we've talked about it a little bit, but maybe to you first, Davis. Any of these guys, 50% or below, And you can also disagree with my odds if you want. Any of those guys there that you like a lot right now in Superflex drafts.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield. I mean, it's just like it's like the theme of this show. I'm like Kyle Trask is nothing. Kyle Trask was barely even a prospect. What was he, a 5th round pick? Like, you don't.
Wasn't he a sneaky
You're
like a
doing
second
the
round
age
pick?
thing. Yeah, you did the age thing with the draft cap. I think he was a 2nd round pick.
Yeah, I think he
Was he really?
Yeah,
I think so.
He was.
Second
No
round.
later than a 3rd.
He was
He
a second round pick.
he was a
60,
second round pick.
He's a 2nd round pick now.
I mean, who cares? He's useless. You know? he's Kellen Mond or what? I mean, this Kyle Trask was not even particularly good at Florida. You know, I mean, he was. I guess he had a very good final season at Florida. I don't know. He just he's not very mobile. I just don't really. I guess he's been on the team as their backup quarterback, so maybe there's something they're seeing in him that I don't see. But I just. And also, I guess maybe the fact that they're really going to stink is a point against Baker, and they will just like, well, we might as well see what this guy has because his contract expires in a year.
I think what they're seeing in Kyle Trask is Caleb Williams. That's what they see in him.
Sure, right. That's definitely part of it too. I mean, but Bailey Zappi though. I mean, Bailey
Belichick hates Mac Jones. I think
Belichick. He just hates Mac Jones, right? It's just got to be personal at this point.
It is personal. He was like seeking outside help, which apparently Belichick like despised that he wanted an offensive coordinator or someone to make the offense go. He just thinks that's treason.
If my boss was Joe Judge or Matt Patricia, I'm seeking outside help.
Yeah.
For
sure.
Why wasn't Belichick seeking outside help? How did he not have an offensive coordinator? It was with a 2nd-year quarterback. I mean, it's embarrassing.
Because that's how, dude. In 1976, when his dad was coaching at Navy, that's how it was done. You know, you just stepped up. You just helped out where you could. You don't need outside help. If someone asks you to be the offensive coordinator, you just offensive coordinate. It doesn't have to be a big fancy thing. You know what I mean?
Hey, Matt Patricia, failed head coach and bad defensive coordinator. Do offense now. Step up.
Hey,
you were bad at the thing that you were supposed to be good at. Now be good at something that you have.
It's not that hard, Matt. Just do it. McDaniels could do it. Just do it.
Oh my God.
Don't ruin the confidence of our young quarterback. We took a 1st-round pick. Step up.
Oh, yeah. So Bailey Zappi, I think, if you had to set a market, what number would you bet if this was available? You know, if the DraftKings Sportsbook could set this number for Bailey Zappi for non-injury related reasons to be the week 1 starter for the New England Patriots, what number would you bet that at?
I'd probably need 5-1 odds.
I was thinking like 5 or 6 to 1.
I think I'd need less.
Yeah, like
3-1. I'd be like, eh.
And also, this is the dumbest shit ever. But the fact that the fans like Bailey Zappi and that he's got a cool name, you think that doesn't play into it? It totally plays into it. Like it's very basic human psychology. The fans do not like Mac Jones because of, I think there are a couple different reasons, but Bailey Zappi just coming in and like being kind of fun. And then there's also the thing you can say about him that he has the all-time record for touchdowns and yards in a season in college football. Like that's kind of cool. Like he's just kind of one of those memes. Like Bailey Zappi is like a meme.
Even the way he's bad is kind of fun. Like he has no zip on the ball. He like floats the ball in. It looks insane, but then it becomes like this magic trick where you're like, he's completing passes. Like how, so it's kind of, he's delightfully bad. And obviously that will wear thin over a large sample.
I don't think he's making it 17 games. Like I don't think, my supposition is not that he makes it 17 games as the Patriots starter.
That's why on these odds I put Mac 50 and Zappi 20. I'm putting 30% in there for like
whatever
Levis or Richardson or
Tannehill. I could see Tannehill cut signing for the. I could see why doesn't Bill go get Malik Willis? I mean, it feels like he would at least have fun coaching Malik Willis because he would just get to go back to the shit his dad coached. I mean, they could run the Cam Newton offense with Malik Willis.
Look at Tannehill, man. I've been kind of surprised that, like, to me, Tannehill's like way better than some of these other cast-offs.
Yeah, I think Tannehill's one of my favorite favorite value. Even though I do think he could be a 0 weeks 15 to 17, he's cheap enough now that I was kind of shitting on that pick earlier, but I think it's fine. Like if you compare him to like Jimmy G or Desmond Ridder, like I kind of like Tannehill better than Desmond Ridder.
Oh yeah, Tannehill is way more talented than Desmond Ridder. He runs around a little bit.
I don't think Ridder is good enough to even get through like 6 weeks.
Yeah, should we be drafting Heineke, or should
Yes,
or is Tannehill going to
Heineke.
Atlanta?
No, Heineke. Heineke is the move.
Okay.
Ridder
sucks. Ridder sucks.
Ridder's bad.
Right?
Yeah,
I
hate
wrong?
the Ridder. I hate the Ridder pick.
Don't we have to assign some probability that 35-year-old, mobile first quarterback Ryan Tannehill, like he might just ride off into the sunset. Like he might just decide, like, playing behind whoever or like getting cut and like moving my health. Like there's got to be some change. And I mean, I guess I always say this, but these guys are so addicted to their sport. It never happens this way. They just keep in perpetuity. Like, like Ryan Tannehill will be a backup quarterback until he's 39. But for me, like what if Ryan Tannehill is going to go be freaking the backup in Miami or something? Like, I don't know. It just doesn't feels like there's a chance he doesn't play this year.
I mean, I would go to Atlanta and,
start probably. Yeah.
Start. Yeah. I think there's spots where, I mean, he knows how to run the Arthur Smith offense. Like he's been very successful in it. I don't know. I'm kind of surprised that Atlanta hasn't even tried to make that happen.
They also are not trying to acquire Lamar Jackson, despite the fact that like their roster is starting to get good, which is the craziest thing about it.
Yeah, I have one backup quarterback that I've been taking it on in like 19th, 20th round. I think you got to take Sam Darnold a bunch. So I think he has 2 outs. Obviously, the first one is Purdy's
a betrayal of your Purdy take.
I know, but it's an injury-based Purdy take, not a talent-based Purdy take. So Purdy's injured. Obviously, if he's healthy, he's the GOAT. But he's injured. He can't get back. Lance is just stinking it up. He Shanahan's hating him. Sam Darnold gets a chance. That's out number 1. I think out number 2 is Lance is looking pretty good in the offseason. Purdy's healthy. He's throwing. Darnold's getting paid like $5 million guaranteed, I think, as a third-string quarterback. That's a lot. I think there's a possibility that Darnold was a signing that's like a hedge on a Purdy, on Purdy's health. And if Darnold's healthy, they might consider trading him for like a 4th-round pick to a really desperate team.
This is the worst take that I can't actually dispel with facts and logic. Like this is the take that makes me the angriest, that like the more I dig into it, the more I can't be like, well, of course it's stupid. Like Gretch's analysis I thought was it was most soothing to my brain, which was basically like, yeah, you can't sign this guy to a contract after probably telling him he could compete for playing time and then immediately say he's the 3rd-string quarterback.
Yeah.
The analysis that tickles my brain in a good way is Shanahan has just gotten screwed so many consecutive years by quarterback injuries. He wants to have 3 guys who are competent, and paying $5 million guaranteed to Sam Darnold does that enough for him. But obviously there is so much smoke that Trey Lance just stinks, right? It's like the smoke is so thick. You just can't see anything but the smoke. Although there was a video going around of him throwing for the first time in a while, and it does look like he has worked on his mechanics a little bit. It looks a little bit less hitchy. Not a scout, so that's not a technical.
Yeah, there's sort of a catapult approach to throwing that he has. It's like kind of it's very
yeah. And I'll give you
for the eye.
The third out I'd give with Darnold even is I don't think a Lance trade is completely out of the picture either.
I'd say a Lance trade, if Purdy is healthy, is quite live actually.
Yeah.
Where's he going?
Tennessee. Isn't that because isn't that the reporting, right? I mean, it's hard.
I saw Houston at one point because of the D'Amico Ryans connection, but that seems weird that the pass on Bryce.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, it seems bizarre, but I have seen that.
So. Well, the guy who drafted him is the Titans GM, right? The director of player personnel.
I'll tell you what, if Lance goes to Tennessee, give me Tannehill.
God.
I can't believe you have capitulated to this degree. I'm honestly kind of ashamed of you, Pat.
No,
You
they
can't-
they'd cut Tannehill and Lance would beat out Willis. I'm on Lance if he goes. to
Oh
Tennessee.
God, if Lance can't beat out Willis, then
Is Willis
Jesus.
okay? This is a good question. I mean, is Malik Willis ever going to play in an NFL game again? Like, it was was the Josh Dobbs benching in basically a playoff game? Like, I mean, is that truly like there can't be any coming back from that, right?
That
I think
was
you gotta, that was
that was
brutal.
a hey, good news. The XFL's restarting. That was that.
Man.
Yeah, it was rough.
Malik Willis and the Taysom Hill role, maybe.
He'd be
Give
good
him
at
tight
it.
end eligibility. Let's
Give him
go.
tight end eligibility. I'm drafting.
I mean, Jeff Driscoll did it, and Malik Willis is more athletic than Jeff Driscoll. That's all I got. That's the best compliment I can give to Malik Willis right now is that he is more athletic.
That's just a fact.
I want to talk about some of these guys I can't talk myself into. So Ritter is the first one that I can't talk myself into. Howell, I have difficulty because I just think he's probably going to be bad. I think
Do you see my point on Chip Chasen where I made Gretsch incredibly sad?
no, give it to me.
Okay. Ron Rivera's, and he's like the premier hot seat head coach this year. Like he cannot screw this up
Because they finally sold the team, right?
Yeah, it's like I would say he's almost like certain to be fired, but he
agree.
Theoretically maybe has a chance to save his job. Eric Bieniemy just came over. He's trying to prove that he's not just a guy who got made by Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
So he's got something to prove here. They have Jacoby Brissett, who played very competently last year. He's going to execute an offense.
10th in EPA plus CPOE composite or something like that.
I mean, that's pretty good. So you've got this guy waiting in the wings where like he's safety. Now you go in with Sam Howell. Sam Howell throws like 2 interceptions in one game, and he is sitting his ass down, and we may not see him again.
I wonder if they even bypass that. I think they just go with Brissett first.
Yeah, I think that's totally in play. Brissett
was
seems
good
like a
last
major.
year. He was good last year, like just straight up. I mean, not amazing, but whatever.
He's got like a pretty decent sample of being a fine NFL player, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Howell was a 5th round pick who was anointed to start by Taylor Heineke. Heineke said, "I'm not starting this week. Y'all should check out Howell." That's what happened. I mean, they weren't even planning on playing him in his rookie season. It's crazy.
I want to dig in on that point because I think people might be questioning like, why is Ron Rivera so guaranteed to be fired? Well, Ron Rivera's results have been horrible for a while. Daniel Snyder was so cheap though that he didn't want to fire him and pay out the guaranteed money because that's the way coaching contracts work. You don't see this happen very often in the NFL. This is more of an NBA thing where teams prefer to keep their coach to the end to not have to pay them the money. But that's why Josh McDaniels still has a job for the Raiders, right? It's like they gave him so much money that if they fired him, and it's like you're going to be bad anyway. So what's the point? Just let the bad coach keep his job because you got to pay him either way. And I mean, we're talking like Dan Snyder's like legendarily poor for an NFL owner. It's like he charged the team. He made the team pay to put he charged the team to put advertising on his private plane, right? Because he couldn't afford jet fuel. So it's like he had no money. So he did not want to fire Ron Rivera and pay Ron Rivera more money. So now that the team is sold, he's gone. He's like really gone.
Yeah, which I guess because maybe he's so gone, maybe that's like a counter argument that like he could just like say fuck it and roll it out.
Like going to work after you've already put your 2 weeks, like Michael Scott drinking the scotch with the Splenda in it. Like he doesn't care. Yeah,
he's from Office Space. He actually becomes awesome at his job now.
I mean, unironically, most NFL coaches would probably do better if they were not worried about the long-term security of their jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, and that would be the like let's see what we got in Howell move. But I don't know. Rivera didn't know the playoff scenarios that he needed to make the playoffs last year, as Rotopat just pointed out.
Yeah, we're not eliminated, right? Oh no, we are.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just don't think he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be grasping on to the last shred of hope that he can retain his job in it. And the best chance he has, I think, is just rolling out, an okay, competent offense, that's not embarrassing anyone. And then
okay. Give me the Tyler Huntley takes. I mean, it's April 7th. We don't have a resolution to this Lamar stuff. The trade request per Lamar is over a month old at this point.
I'm not drafting Huntley just because I think if they move on from Lamar, they have a plan to like, trade with the team so they can get Richardson or Levis or something, or I don't know. Even if it's Huntley to start the year, is it going to be him to finish the year? I don't know. I'm not that excited.
That's a Lance destination spot potentially. You've already got the system set up for a mobile quarterback.
We should refer to him as a Pro Bowl quarterback, Tyler Huntley.
Yeah, also, Pro Bowl quarterback, Tyler Huntley.
How did that happen? I don't even know how that happened.
I want to say Trubisky was a Pro Bowl quarterback at some point.
He did have a kind of good year though. Like Huntley, like barely even
flag football participant Tyler Huntley.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
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 Do you like Huntley?
So no, I don't.
Really.
But Heineke is if we think that Ritter is so trash, Heineke's got to be the obvious pivot from there, because Heineke can do I can be a C- quarterback. Ritter I don't even think can be a C-. I think Ritter getting a D would be like a giant win for him. I think
the issue with Ritter too is it's like, okay, he got benched. We knew he was going to get benched. He got benched, but before he did, I got all these great games of a conservative, immobile quarterback in the run heaviest offense in the league. Like, you didn't get anything even when you had the starts. You could have a situation where, if you have a 4 quarterback team where he starts like 8 games and hits your lineup once. So
yeah. I don't feel good about it. The one actually, I think maybe my favorite one on the right hand side that we haven't talked about yet or not dived into is Will Levis at pick 120 compared to other quarterbacks.
Great. That's great.
We don't love him as a prospect, but man, I think he's gonna go to one of these teams like Tampa Bay or Washington or like one of these very gross quarterback situation teams, and like by week, like he's gonna go to a team that I think is bad in real life football, and like they're gonna see what they have in him by the end of the year. Like there's no way he's not starting. Like I think maybe my putting him in for 50% was a little conservative. I think you can make an argument.
I think it's conservative too.
70%, maybe 60, 70. So, his draft capital, like people have talked about, he might slide. If you look at like just average grinding the mocks or, whatever website, it's not really sliding. And there's still some buzz about him going forward to the Colts. So I think the Levis pick is kind of a smash right now.
Yeah. I mean, even if he stinks, like Mitch Trubisky stunk and like, he ran around a little bit and was playing by the end of his rookie year. Right. So
yeah, 10 for 17, 95 yards passing, 1 pick, and then 2 rushing touchdowns and 40 rushing yards. And there you go. That's your super flex, Will Levis right there.
Yeah, he's like a little Daniel Jonesy. He doesn't run as much as Jones, but I mean he's somewhat mobile. His rushing stuff wasn't bad, and he scrambles. He does scramble. So I think he's any of these rookie quarterbacks like. If you're taking these guys who are at risk of not starting the whole season, like you definitely want to take the guys who are at risk more of not starting at the beginning of the year, have more outs in the final.
Yeah. And I can't pull this up right now, but I'm going to trust the chat. Chris says betting markets have Levis actually favored to Indianapolis right now. Not sure if he means like plurality or like majority odds, if you know what I mean, but anyways, like even if I imagine it's even close, like betting markets must be pretty close there. So yeah, I mean, if he goes to the Colts, he's starting weeks 15 through 17. Like put that
probably.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to see him not unless he's just
Minshew mania.
Yeah, Minshew mania takes over. Okay, cool. I think we've any last guys you want to talk about? Otherwise, I think we should talk through some of the risers and fallers stuff.
No, let's do it.
Once we started talking about Tyler Huntley and Bailey Zappi, I think we've covered everything.
Stidham should be drafted.
Stidham,
yes,
yeah.
I do sort of think that is like the point of the exercise, though.
Oh yeah, no, I think that was really worthwhile to go through some of that. Okay, I'll be honest, guys. The risers and fallers data not the best this week because in launching a new tournament, they have to put default ADP in there, and these are just kind of like the market reacting to the positions being undervalued, overvalued. So this chart here, it's just all quarterbacks. We've talked quarterback to death, so I don't even really want to get into that. Let's talk about Pat's 4th ranked dynasty running back, Izzy Abanikanda, up 18 spots to 172 overall. That's a 10% increase in ADP. He's the only non-quarterback on this chart, so that's pretty impressive for him showing up here. Pat, maybe give a little bit of your dynasty take on Abanikanda too, and then tell us whether you're still chasing him up draft boards in best ball.
Yeah, my take with Abanikanda, and actually a couple of these running backs that have similar profiles, Tank Bigsby, Kendre Miller, are the 3 guys that I feel most confident about in their profiles. I just started to feel like, kind of like we're talking about these quarterbacks, like I wanted to swing a little bigger with the chance, that I'm going to miss on some of these guys. But when I hit, I think the hits will be much bigger than a guy like Tyjae Spears or Devin Achane. And Spears is kind of more of he's undersized. He's going to be kind of like a 3rd down back, but he doesn't profile as like an electric receiver. He profiles a very good receiver, but it's like, what's he really going to do for you as a rookie in half-point PPR, even if he hits? I think like his best outcome would be like a Michael Carter situation, lands on an empty depth chart. But I think he kind of needs it all to line up for him. Whereas like Abanikanda, he's 216. He just tested as the most athletic running back in a class that includes Bijan Robinson. And he is sufficiently efficient in the passing game, much like Zach Charbonnet. He had a higher yards per out run than Charbonnet over his career, higher than Tank Bigsby, higher than Roschon Johnson, higher than Kendre Miller. So he's not like a guy who profiles as like an electric receiving back, but he looks competent there. One of these guys who can probably just stay on the field if there's no, strong competition with a dedicated receiving back. So I'm like, big enough, very athletic, breakaway runner. He's only 20 years old. He only had 1 good college season, but he doesn't turn 21 until October. And so to see a guy emerge with a really strong, productive season as a 19/20-year-old doesn't make me like, yeah, I wish he was better at 17 years old or whatever. But, I can kind of forgive that a little bit. So that's the big red flag I would say, is that he really he's a one-hit wonder in college, but he's so young that I'm willing to overlook that a little bit. And it's just kind of a bet on a pretty well-rounded profile with elite athleticism and enough size to be a true lead back. But I think Bigsby and Miller are both. Bigsby's actually like much cheaper than Miller here. I got him like a full, like long round after, the board wrapped back around, and I took Miller and then I got Bigsby as well. Those guys, I think, also have really interesting profiles in the same vein. And, chances are one of them falls to like the mid-5th or even the 6th or something, because there's such a deep group of running backs. But I think any of those guys, and like a guy like Roschon Johnson, there's a number of these guys that if they get drafted in the 3rd round, they feel like, maybe 9th round picks, maybe 8th round values in 1 quarterback drafts. So I still feel like there's value here. Whereas like a guy like Achane, even if it kind of lines up well, if we get the draft capital we expect, he still feels more like a 12th round type of value to me. So I don't know. You just don't have as much chance for kind of a home run pick with those guys, even though, I don't think they're terrible picks, Achane and Spears. I just like the higher upside bets.
I'm all in on Abanikanda, like big, fast. Like I actually think there are worlds where he ends up being better than Charbonnet.
Wow. So yeah,
Charbonnet is such a Kerrane style guy and such a not my style guy. Like he's the most Tyler Algier ass running back.
I do love a Tyler Algier.
You do. And I mean, that type of guy, Brian Robinson, very similar, nothing special, but the coach who takes him is going to like him, big bodied, going to trust
Robinson
him.
had a much worse efficiency profile than those guys. I wasn't in on Robinson.
Sure. I mean, Robinson, he averaged like 5 yards per carry. It's just he played at Alabama, so what can you even learn?
Yeah.
It's very hard to learn about Alabama running backs.
Oh, sorry. To stay on Abanikanda for a second, I agree with everything you said, Pat, and I've been taking him. I frankly was like underweight on him early in drafts.
I was
like,
too. I didn't realize how athletic he was, and people were saying he was, and I was like not listening, and I should have.
Yeah,
but you know, sometimes I'm skeptical of that. You hear like, oh, this guy's gonna be so athletic, and then he's like, fine. But I mean, he's really athletic.
Yeah, he's really athletic, and I think he should stand out from the other guys in his tier from an athleticism standpoint. But my one pushback, like if I'm playing devil's advocate, you look at expected draft capital in NFL mock draft database.com. He's still not very high up there. He's behind Tavian Thomas, Chase Brown, Eric Gray, Sean Tucker, Deuce Vaughn, Kenny McIntosh, like guys we're not super excited about. So like, I think that data is not perfect. It could just be like a lag thing where the big boards haven't caught up to his pro day numbers yet. And like, I expect him to go up, but like, I don't know, that's just like a slight hesitation. That's like, you haven't quite seen like the NFL media types buy into him fully yet. So that's my only minor pushback. I still think at this price, like it's not super risky, but
I think that pushback is you're underselling like how good of a point that is, because like I'm not seeing the buzz on him, and I don't know, maybe it's just because it's like April 7th and people are like taking a week off before the final push of the draft or something. But like, you know, PFF's big board has him 174th, and his speed is just a blank line. Like they haven't even bothered to. Now I'm like, when you get around to putting his speed in is really fast, will he move up your board? But like, I don't know, sort of a collective yawn from the draft community when he crushed his pro day, which I find like a little concerning, because maybe that means that, you know, I don't know, like they just didn't think it's tape. Like they basically had this already baked in. Like they're like, yeah, we know he's fast, but we think he sucks at these other three things.
That's what I'm just like a little wary of, is like sometimes there's these things where like if you're just looking at it from a data perspective, this kind of looks like buzz in the fantasy community that's driving him up, but not buzz in the NFL community. And like, you know, I don't know, we saw that with guys like Seth Williams a couple years ago. Like there's examples of these type of guys that like the buzz is like fantasy guys and not NFL guys, and I just get a little worried there. But that said, cheap enough now where I want my exposure, just because I like don't think there's a huge difference between being ranked 180 on a big board versus like 120, and I'm taking the guys at 120 or whatever. So, you know, but I think that it is like fair to point out if he continues to rise, like, I don't know, I'll get a little more nervous.
I completely agree with you. I think it's a good reason to sort of try to get the exposure in now, because he probably will rise a little bit more, at least a little bit more. And he does have a low floor. Like he has like a very low floor. I mean, he could be like a 6th round pick, because he's part of a group of guys that as a whole, I think we're going to get some big hits from. But we also are going to be wrong about several of them. Like we might only get 2 big hits from 5 or 6 guys. So, and the other, you know, 2 of those guys might be total bust. So,
that's fair. Davis, I know I cut off something you were going to say earlier. Did you have a point on Abanikanda or another guy here? Apologies for that.
No, I mean, I just think he fits the profile of a dude who could be a Damian Piercy, Isaiah Pacheco, like just grinding out. Like, I mean, obviously weeks he doesn't score a touchdown, probably getting you very little, right? But I mean, the Damian Pierce and Isaiah Pacheco touchdown spike weeks were good when they happened. And this is proudly a closing line value show. And he's probably going to be what, you know, Pat, like a 10th round pick on August 1st, you know, something like that.
I jumped on that train, man. I got the train was pulling me from the station, and I grabbed it last week.
Oh, so. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. One other question, getting back to the quarterbacks, for you, Davis, like I see Stroud, Richardson, Bryce Young all go together basically at pick 60. Like the market's more or less just like throwing up their arms and saying, I don't know what to do with these 3 guys. We're going to just put them all right close together.
Yeah, which is kind of weird, because you would think that fantasy football nerds drafting on April 7th would have a much stronger take about which one is better between Stroud and Young, but they don't. They seem to have absolutely no conviction, basically treating them the same way. Love, pretty interesting to me. I mean, I sent out a tweet last week, kind of tongue in cheek, like, are there Jordan Love truthers? And I found out there are. There are like a pretty large contingent of Jordan Love truthers. And really, it's the same as Trey Lance truthers, big and strong. And we just haven't really get to see him with an offense constructed around what he can do well. So maybe I need to sell myself on Jordan Love a little bit.
Yeah.
I guess I just don't get it when you can get the rookies at the same price as Love. That's where I wouldn't hate him if he was like 15 picks later, but like, I don't know. I'd rather have a rookie who hasn't sat for 3 years and can't get on the field. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
And hasn't looked good when he's out there, right? Like, I know he looked okay the last game, but like, I'm not that confident in Love. I think what I like about Love is that he's not getting benched. There's no one else. They got to see this through. I guess he could get benched, but I think he has like fairly low odds of getting benched for his talent level. Like talent adjusted, he has, likely his likely talent level, he has pretty low odds of getting benched. So I like that, but I like it more in one quarterback where, you can kind of take him as like a second quarterback or something if you miss out on the rookies and you have an elite guy and you're like, yeah, help me get there. Maybe he spikes in week 15 and helps get me through, and that's all I need. Here, that's significant opportunity cost. And I agree with you. He's going around other quarterbacks I like better. So, I mean, Pickett, he's definitely not getting benched. And he's going later. He's going
Who's the Steelers' backup quarterback? I don't even know the answer to that question.
Isn't it still Trubisky?
Mason Rudolph.
Is Trubisky? I thought Trubisky was still there.
I think it's Rudolph and Trubisky were both there last year. I don't know about this year, to be honest.
Yeah,
Pickett's not good, but he's not an embarrassment.
There. Yeah, he's still there.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe people. I think there'd be like Pickett haters out there that could find some numbers that showed Trubisky was better than Pickett last year, right?
Yeah, Pickett's not good, but like he doesn't do anything that I think will get him like outright bench. Like he's just really boring, and it's not so. But like in this format, if you just have a guy who's hitting your Superflex enough, I don't know. Compared to Love, I think he's probably a better pick.
That's the thing, is that just like these quarterbacks that we don't think are very good, but are very likely to start down the stretch. Like I think you can put both Love and Pickett into that category. I think they're just pretty valuable still because, man, like a bad quarterback can spike for 22 points, like without doing that much. You know what I mean? Like, like not like that their median score is that high. Like they could be averaging 14 points all year, but we see really bad quarterbacks just get to that 21 point level, which in one quarterback, that doesn't matter that much. Like if you took Pickett and he gets you 21 in one quarterback, like that's barely going to matter. That's just replacement level basically on a weekly basis. Right. But in Superflex, that can give you pretty big leverage, down the stretch. So these guys are it's just a completely different game, I guess is the point I'm making.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to skip a couple of these charts here. The fallers chart. Only thing I'll highlight is Lance, one of the few quarterbacks that is going down in ADP. I think there's reasons behind that, obviously, but we've talked about him. I think he's
a much better pick in this format, right?
Yes,
much better.
Yeah, exactly. But let's not do the Lance thing again. This running back chart, I think we've talked to death. I did want to talk about the wide receiver rookie chart quickly. This is maybe just like a game theory take, but I think that so there's a pretty clear, again, top 6 guys, from Smith and Jigba to Downs, pretty clear top 6. And then we kind of have a big fall off and everyone's guessing. I'm kind of inclined to take stabs on the Tillman, Tyler Scott, Rashee Rice, even Booty now, because he's fallen so much over Mims.
Mims is my he's my new crush. Yeah. I did a little bit more digging into him because it felt weird to me that the weird thing about him is that he's actually bigger than Hyatt, Downs, and Flowers. He was like 185, but ran either faster or equivalent speeds to them and did the short shuttle stuff good and broke out as an 18-year-old. Like was a better
prospect entering college.
Yes. So I think this is the most exploitable thing with rookies right now is there's just this weird I don't get it. I don't know what it is, but there's a weird thing going on with Marvin Mims.
Yeah.
I also
go
I
ahead.
had Travis May on the Legendary Upside podcast yesterday, and I was trying to talk him into some real Marvin Mims hype if he does go second round. Like, what if Mims goes to the Chargers in the second round? Like, how high are we moving him up? Our wide receiver rankings, for me, he would easily go ahead of Hyatt and Downs. And like, I was like, what if Zay Flowers goes to the Patriots in the first round and Mims is on the Chargers in the second round, which feels like fairly realistic. I think I'd be Mims over Flowers, which I couldn't get Travis on board with. So maybe that was a hot take.
Mims second round to a good team versus Flowers to the Patriots in the first round.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Don't give me Zay Flowers.
Give me Mims. Yeah.
They already got Juju Smith-Schuster to play that role. And by the way, this is neither here nor there. It's a bit rich of the drafters on Underdog. Jacoby Myers and Juju Smith-Schuster are literally in the applet right next to each other, like same ADP. It's wide receiver 51, wide receiver 52. And it'll probably be different tomorrow, because that was like a perfect little thing. Kerrane, what did you make of this report that Josh Downs has had 0 top 30 visits? There was an Athletic article that came out yesterday, basically like, pretty quiet pre-draft process for the 171 pounds Josh Downs.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty concerning to me. He's 171 pounds, and he was a slot wide receiver in college. I mean, I don't really understand. I've never really understood his ADP on Underdog because he goes much later on FFPC, and he's just a pure volume play. So if the draft capital is not there for him, which is a pretty big part of the bull case, I mean, I think he'll be like a third round pick at worst, right? He's not falling to day 3, but he was sort of like supposed to be a second round pick. So if he's like a third round slot receiver, like no thank you where he's going on Underdog.
I mean, I just don't really have any interest in him in any format, to be honest.
Yeah.
He's late enough on FFPC where I think he's fine mixing in because I don't know, maybe you get an empty depth chart and he just soaks up targets underneath or something.
Right. Or maybe he's the guy that the Chargers take.
Maybe. Back to my original point, like I guess I shouldn't phrase it as much of an anti-Mims thing. It's just like there's like these cluster of guys, Tillman, Scott, Rice, Butte, that are projected to get higher draft capital than Mims, and especially in Superflex now, they're like basically going undrafted. I just think the odds that one of those guys lands in a landing spot that we really like in like the second or third round, like I think there's some value in those guys right now. Just uncertainty, like the projected draft capital looks pretty good for them. Just like game 3 point, they're going undrafted. I'm gonna probably take a little bit of them.
I've had a hard time with the projected draft capital over the last couple weeks. Like it feels like the guys that I want to tell me what's going to happen are being very quiet. And then like, I don't know, like I don't know are we trusting like mock draft database right now with like some of these mocks aren't that high quality?
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. I guess I don't. So my point is like, I wouldn't look at this and say like, oh, Tillman is better than Mims. Like we can confidently say that. I think maybe what we can confidently say is like they're in the same tier at least in terms of projected draft capital. In terms
of draft capital, probably. I guess.
In draft capital, not.
I mean, Lance Zierlein had Tillman as his going to the Chiefs in the first round.
Yeah, toss out Lance Zierlein mocks, dude. Like the draft day scenario he had going, it's like I'm not engaging with this. Even if you're literally texting Nick Caserio or whatever, it's like I can't. They traded down, then they took a defensive player, then traded back up to take a quarterback. It was insane. It was an insane person's mock.
Well, sure, but like, isn't like some of the value of some of these guys, and I don't know the mock draft streets well enough to say if Zierlein's one of these guys or not, but like, isn't the idea that they're hearing from teams that like Tillman is pretty high, like higher than you think on our board?
So my thought on Tillman and the argument I've heard is that this entire wide receiver class is just a bunch of tiny dudes, and Tillman is one of the rare
big
bodies.
dudes who play small.
Exactly. Like he's one of the rare bodies in this class, and there's definitely some NFL teams that still have we need guys to clear certain thresholds in order to draft him. Like those old school teams, I think, still exist. So Tillman's going to go higher than you think because of that. That's sort of the argument.
He also
I've seen
is
laid
really
out.
good at the catch point. Like he is a big wide receiver who plays big. So if that's what you want, like if you're like really need a big dude on the outside who can get downfield and, you know, win 50-50 balls, he is that guy. I don't know. He was a 5th-year senior who didn't do anything until his 4th year out of high school. So like, not a great profile. But I don't like discount the idea that he might be like a 4th or 5th round talent who goes in the early 2nd. You know, which does have some value in terms of like
it's just
getting
on
the field right away.
That was what I did my first newsletter post about. Is it's going to cause people to go. Like one of these guys is going to get drafted so crazy high because these are all small slot wide receivers. Like Smith and Jigba's not small, but he's a slot wide receiver. But Addison, Flowers, Hyatt, Downs, Scott, Mims, Dell, Reed, and Charlie Jones are all sub 185 pounds.
Wow.
So I did. I mean, my favorite thing in fantasy football is to run Pro Football Reference screens just to see. There have been 3 players ever to post 200 plus fantasy points PPR who are listed at 105 pounds or less. It's Antonio Brown, Deshaun Jackson was the only one listed under 180, and Devonta Smith and Darnell Mooney. These are the only guys
Under 180.
Under 180, yeah.
Okay.
And Antonio Brown is like 183, but it was a pro day listing, so it's like you get different stuff on Antonio Brown depending on which database you're using. Waddle
was 180, and again, Garrett Wilson was like 183. So I do think the guys.
That's what I sort of found doing this research is it's all tilting that way, and I think that Devonta Smith is basically just going to these teams are going to be like, well, we got to get the next Devonta Smith. Like, we don't even care. I don't care that this guy weighs 167 pounds because Devonta Smith is the man. Like, I think our, like, if we're running these screens that was the eventual conclusion I reached, is that we're going to do these drafts. We're going to be doing the same exact shit 3 years from now. And there's going to be a Tutu Atwell clone who weighs 155 pounds, who is going to be
145.
Yeah, it's just not going to matter because they're and it makes sense. You know, they're legislating big hits out of the game. Like, when's the last time you saw a wide receiver really get creamed and a flag was not immediately called? I cannot think of a time. And average depth of target is trending way down. It was like the lowest average depth of target in over a decade, but the highest passing rate in a decade. So all these teams are just putting a premium on guys who can get open immediately, who can just release right away off the line of scrimmage. And I think it's easier to do when you weigh 170 pounds than when you're Quentin Johnston's size. But some teams on the converse are still going to want those guys. So the Quentin Johnsons and the Cedric Tillmans are going to make themselves some money in that regard.
I remain skeptical that, you know, Devonta Smith isn't an outlier. And I also, you know, have made this is sort of like a subtle point that gets me in trouble. But I do think that like Devonta Smith would probably be better served if he was like 195 pounds. You know, I don't think it's helpful to him, you know, to be that small. So I like, you know, Jordan Addison. He was so good, early to clear, you know, Biletnikoff winner. Can he be like a very good number 2 option? Like, I feel confident that he can, you know, and I think he can contribute right away. So that doesn't concern me that much that he's under 180 pounds. And Zay Flowers and Marvin Mims are over 180 pounds. So those guys, like, you know, it's kind of the Garrett Wilson thing where it's like, if you're good enough to play on the outside, which I think both guys do profile like they are, they both really good downfield receivers. And, you know, Flowers is seen as a really strong route runner. So I don't think those guys are like slot only. So I'm good with them size wise. The other guys, like Downs, he's slot only and he's 171. Like, that scares the crap out of me just because it's like, how many routes are you running? You know,
Downs and Hyatt, I get the worst vibes about. Downs and Hyatt are the ones that give me bad vibes. Like Flowers, Addison, Smith and Jigba, whatever, Mims, we both like. But yeah, like Bills fans, like drooling to get Jalen Hyatt at 27 or Josh Downs at 20. I can't get there.
That's what I feel.
It scares me too.
I feel with those guys, Downs, Hyatt, and even maybe a little bit Flowers, is like if they don't get a good landing spots, we're gonna get pretty down on them pretty quickly. Like, I don't know.
I mean,
Like,
we're never going to hear from Josh Downs again if he like ends up being a commander. Like literally just like forget that dude exists.
God. It's over if he's a commander.
he becomes De'Ami Brown. Like you're cutting this guy for Kylan Granson in Dynasty.
He becomes so like literally there is a guy that I have forgotten. I think he had a Steve in his name, Steven Sims. Right. So he went to the Commanders. I had to go into the deep recesses of my brain. I may not even have gotten his name. He
was a really interesting prospect because he was like an elite returner at Kansas.
Yeah. So
they had another one of those guys, Antonio Gandy Golden. Remember him?
Well, he was a
bigger
guy.
Man.
There's your Cedric Tillman comp.
Gandy Golden, yeah. I think like if you play his career over again and put him on a good team, I still think he probably could have made it.
Yeah, I know. I liked him too. But like that, that's your slot. Steven Sims, interesting slot guy, goes to the Commanders. It's immediately over. Yeah. Hyatt, by the way, I think he needs not only like a good team, but a team that is willing to like run a deep threat out of the slot and do like creative stuff to like, I think if he goes to the Cowboys, like just write him off. He's, because they're going to have him play like regular Z snaps and it'll be terrible.
Yeah.
The Cowboys,
go ahead.
Are we totally writing Jalen Tolbert off after the redshirt year? Like, is he a cut in Dynasty?
Yeah.
Dead.
When Noah Brown just like completely owns you.
That was so bad.
It's over. You're not.
Yeah.
You don't have it.
Yeah. So a couple guys like, and this is maybe not actionable info. Like, I don't know how you profit on this, but like, I have a hunch that because this class is so tiny, some of these like deeper guys that are just size speed freaks in this class are going to surprisingly go early. Not all of them, but like one of them. And the names I'd throw out maybe are Mingo, Bryce Ford Wheaton, and Andre Isovash from Princeton. Those guys are all like size speed freaks. And I think some team. I think
your take is right. I think you're right. 100%.
I don't know which
Liam
one.
Liam is a Bryce Ford Wheaton maxi.
And I don't know how you profit on that, but like maybe can you bet? I don't think you can bet these guys like to go before a certain pick. I don't think those markets exist, and I wouldn't really be taking them in best ball because like even if the Tyquan Thornton thing happens to one of them, it's not like that big of an ADP rise. But like I don't know. Maybe, Davis, you have a take on how to like profit off this take?
You will be able to do that eventually, like a week before the NFL draft. DraftKings will have like a Bryce Ford Wheaton prop that you can bet $17 on.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that if Cedric Tillman is a second round pick to a team with a decent passing offense, you can profit off of that.
Yeah, and I like the Mingo mention. He's really big, 220 pounds. He's 6'2". He's like gigantic hands. He produced downfield. They have 14.0 ADOT. He played for Ole Miss. Big program. He's 45% of his career yards came on deep targets, which is higher than Cedric Tillman. So he is that kind of he's Cedric Tillman, but a little more athletic and probably worse draft capital. But he's like the exact same play. 4.46 40 at 220, 39.5-inch vertical, 129-inch broad jump. So he's someone that I think is pretty interesting as like a third-round pick. He's more to me like a third-round rookie pick in a dynasty league than a guy you'd mix in best ball right now, just because it's like, what's the payoff this year? And the floor is like literally zero. But I think he's pretty interesting. A guy that Travis mentioned yesterday was Trey Palmer, because he's super fast. His jumps were terrible, so he won't show up in the RAS score very high, but he is the fastest wide receiver at the combine. So, he could be the Tyquan Thornton type.
Oh, he's 6'1". That's decent size too. Yeah, I could see that. That's a good one to throw out there. Cool. Let's talk stacks a little bit. I think it's interesting how these prices change once you go to Superflex, because in how we're calculating this, like for example, there's a huge difference in price between like Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson in one quarterback, it's like second round versus eighth round. In Superflex, all of a sudden now Mahomes and Deshaun Watson are going in the same round, basically. So you see teams like Cleveland get pulled up, teams like KC.
Kind of fucks the whole organization of the draft board that people had been doing for the last month. Yeah,
exactly. So I don't know. We've talked about this before. Like, I'm trying hard to figure out this KC Buffalo thing. Like, they should be like, if we could project all of their starters, I think that they should be higher on this chart. Like, they're still pretty high. They're top 6. And even if you go to the other view of like team stacks here, which now it's factoring in 5 players, not just the double stack, you see KC and Buffalo like pretty cheap on this chart, like cheaper than teams like the Chargers, the Lions, the Jags, the Vikings. Like, and on one hand, I think that's like dumb, but on the other hand, I kind of get why. Because like I think the market's pricing in like DeAndre Hopkins going to one of these teams or like some other trade happening for one of these teams. And I get why we don't just like project Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore to like get, 25% target shares. Like if you had to project it right now, you might have to do something crazy like that. So yeah, I don't know. I guess don't have a specific question, but Pat, like, what do you think on these like Bills Chiefs prices? Do you think the market has it right, or do you think like they're too cheap?
I like mixing in the deep threats on both of them. MVS goes very cheaply, and Deontay Hardy I still like taking on the Bills because I'm like, well, they're slightly different plays. The MVS play, I think his routes are the most protected. Kadarius Toney like might genuinely be a gadget player. Like they didn't ever play him. Like, is that concerning to anyone?
He really might be Dexter McCluster. Like Kadarius Toney might be Dexter McCluster.
They didn't give him any playing time. Is that a concern?
Like basically you turn Kadarius Toney into 40% of the snaps and your kick and punt returner, right?
Yeah.
And he scores 8 touchdowns a year because he's really good and he's really fast, but you don't ever expand his role. And you feel perfectly happy having, Justin Watson, Noah Gray, Jody Fortson, all these guys just being totally irrelevant producers, right? Just absolutely never giving you a spike week, never, like getting like 800 combined offensive yards out of 4 guys who play a bunch of snaps. Right. And just vibing, right? I mean, that's like Patrick Mahomes won MVP last year, 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, and the only guys you could use in fantasy were McKinnon and Kelsey.
Yeah,
that was it.
Yeah,
Smith-Schuster had like a 6-week run where he was fine, and then he was done. He was over.
I do think like MVS where he's going gives you, because it's one of those things where if he happened to have one of his better weeks at the right time, we would probably think about it a little different. Then it would be, like it's a no-brainer to take Patrick Mahomes deep threat, So it's just like, do the dice happen to roll, on the right week where you get that spike week? So I like him, and I think he's protected from additions in a way that like Sky Moore is not. If they were to trade for Godwin, Sky Moore's a reserve. But there's going to be 2 outside wide receivers, and I think MVS will be one of them. So he's a decent pick. And then Hardy is a guy. He's kind of like a Tony. He's the Bills' Toney, but instead of paying a premium pick, I'm using a late round dart throw, where I'm like, he's not going to play the exact role of Toney. But what I mean is like he's coming on probably for limited routes, but his impact could be outsized for the routes that he runs because so fast.
Back to like, I feel like Toney is just such like a Rorschach test for how you play fantasy. Like, I don't know. Like, one of my favorite bits last year on your NBC pod, Pat, was I think every week Roto Pat would come to the podcast being like, come on guys, like Toney's going to play more snaps this week, right? Like he's going to get up to like 60-70%. And then you and Kyle would just be like, no, he's not. Like, but like that, it's just so.
And
true,
were we ever wrong?
No, you were never wrong. But like every week I was kind of like, I kind of buy Roto Pat's like argument. Like he's so efficient. Like he is going to get more snaps. And then no, he's not. Like,
no, he's not.
It's just like, it's one of those things that taking him, I don't know where he goes in Superflex, but I think he goes like pick 70 in one quarterback. Like that's, I think it says a lot about how you view upside and not care about downside as to where you.
It's
take
just a
Tony
rough
there,
price for me. I've taken him. I have taken him with a Patrick Mahomes team, but it's
I
like
have to.
it's just not something I'm going out of my way to do. And generally, like if I don't have Mahomes, I'm like happy to see him go off the board, because I'm not. I don't know. It just feels really pricey for the archetype.
For the odds of just giving you absolutely nothing, there's so many guys there that are going to run 90% plus routes that you're passing up on. So it's tough.
Do we think the Chiefs do make a move like to add a quality wide receiver, or do we think that Brett Veach is actually emboldened by getting away with it, like winning a Super Bowl with like 4 of the shittiest wide receivers the NFL has ever seen? Just like, sure, MBS, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Justin Watson, like it's fine. It's it's
he's
like
gonna
whatever.
he's just gonna bring like Byron Pringle and Demarcus Robinson back, and those are gonna be the additions. And they're just like, let's do this again. Like, I don't know.
I think they're a smart enough organization where they'll probably draft someone, because like if you're looking at just overall, not even their needs, like what positions make sense to draft, like wide receiver is increasingly becoming a position where it makes sense to have guys on rookie deals. It's getting more and more expensive. And they, like in their particular case, like Kelsey's going to retire pretty soon. Like they have to hit on some guys at the wide receiver position. So I don't know. I think it'd be kind of malpractice if they don't take a guy in the first couple of rounds.
Isn't it a bigger need to take Michael Mayer, Kincaid,
I was just gonna say
whoever?
That.
Like,
no, because
the counterpoint that you're about to make is you're not going to find Travis fucking
yes,
Kelce. Like
you're not fine.
Yeah.
You're about to lose Travis Kelce. Don't you need like the tail end of Jason Witten's career? Like I don't know. I guess it doesn't hurt, but like
if one of those guys was available in like the 3rd round, though, which I think is possible, like Laporta in the 3rd, I think starts to get pretty interesting for the Chiefs, because like they did have like Noah Gray. If you add up all the snaps of Noah Gray, Fortson, blah blah blah, Blake Bell, I forget who they were playing exactly last year. Like it was like a 30-40% snap roll. Like one of those rookie tight ends in the 3rd round playing that type of role. Like I don't think that's crazy from a team building perspective if that's the price for him.
I agree with that. And it's a deep enough tight end class where you could probably sit back and wait till the 4th and get like the last guy. Maybe not. Maybe they'll get snapped up. But I think at the 3rd round, sure. But I think there's 2 reasons why I wouldn't prioritize Mayer. One, because I think Mayer's a really good prospect. But like even if he turns into like peak Greg Olsen, that's like a massive win for how bad we are predicting these tight ends and how good
and maybe not even a massive win for the Chiefs, right? Pete Greg Olsen, not necessarily like the engine of a really good offense, So it's like they're actually are probably better off just being like, sure, Noah Gray's been on the team for 4 years. He can kind of roll around on the ground, and we'll see if we can actually, because we're better at predicting wide receivers. So let's see if we can turn. Imagine if Marvin Mims goes to the Kansas City Chiefs in the 2nd round.
Make it happen, man. Make it happen. So, and the other thing is, like, if you wanted to go get Mike Gesicki or Irv Smith, who are not going to be as good as Mayer could be, but are like fine, they're so cheap. Like these tight ends are readily available to go fill in, but the wide receivers that you can bring in at that kind of level of contract are like below replacement level. So I just think from a team building perspective, they should really prioritize wide receiver. But
this is like a complete galaxy brain take. But do you think there's anything to like? Do you think the Chiefs have found something in a strategy of playing like many more wide receivers and tight ends in like more bit roles, like 40 to 60% snap roles versus
you just gotta do rugby plays. You just gotta do rugby.
That's not where I was going with this one, but
they didn't outlaw the whole. What I love about we should do this with Liam. This is unfair now, but like we have to have this conversation because he was making this whole point that they would outlaw the rugby play. They didn't outlaw it, so now his take has to change. Rugby might really be optimal. They won't outlaw it.
I still have no idea what the rugby thing means. I need to see like a diagram.
We need to get back on the pod with Liam and talk about
the answer to your question is this already happens, Sam, because teams generally speaking carry 5 or 6 defensive backs, with the 6th one being mostly a special teams guy, and your two best corners basically never sub off. Like the guys who are elite, they're pretty close to like 90-95% snap rates. And if Deontay Hardy runs a 9 route and gets winded and doesn't get targeted, he goes and slaps Isaiah McKenzie. I guess not Isaiah McKenzie anymore. I don't know. Trent Sherfield. He goes and slaps Trent Sherfield's hand and says, "You go run this next route." And Trent Sherfield, not winded, goes and runs the next route and then subs back out. Whereas the cornerback, I can't even think of an AFC East cornerback, Byron Jones,
Darrell Revis.
Sure, right. Darrell Revis has to go walk back to the line of scrimmage and go do it again. So teams already do this. It used to drive. This was the Jalen Reagor thing. This was the thing that drove Kerrane to like insanity. Was he would like, the Eagles rotate their wide receivers. It's not Jalen Reagor's fault. He couldn't break out because he wasn't on the field enough.
Turns out they rotated the wide receivers because they didn't have any good ones. So they were like, please someone step up. Please someone do something.
Yeah.
My point was that like one, I think that would have the benefit of just like guys being fresh, but also like the Chiefs, I think you can kind of describe their wide receiver core last year as like a bunch of guys with like one or two things they're really good at, but like not well-rounded overall wide receivers. So maybe there's some strategic thing there where like if the team is game planning defense and doesn't know if Tony or Juju or whoever's going to be on the field, like it's a completely different player. I don't know. I think you'd rather just have good wide receivers instead of doing that.
Have Mahomes, I think is what they hit on.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
I would say their big innovation in the sport was like, maybe just like get an alien to play quarterback for you.
Have Patrick Mahomes fall to you in the draft. That's a hell of a strategy.
I think that might have been my worst take, trying to explain why the Chiefs were good by Juju Smith-Schuster and MVS and Sky Moore is the reason they're good.
Something I am very tilted about is I so missed the sell window on Smith-Schuster in all these stupid $50 dynasty leagues. Like I could have gotten some seconds for him. There are all sorts of trades available to me, and I was such a, I'm the zealot, I'm the religious zealot, I'm the Mandalorian who won't take his stupid helmet off when it.
Hey man, at least you're not doing it again with Trey Lance. At least you're being prudent there and not doubling down again.
Here's the thing. You're doing it too because I offered you a very fair trade package per the Dynasty League football trade calculator for Trey Lance, and you instantly rejected it.
I think you offered me something absurdly low.
I literally plugged our teams in because DLF has the thing where you can plug your league in, and I clicked Trey Lance on your team, and I used their suggested.
Did you change it to Superflex? Because you might have forgotten to do that.
All right, let's do it again. I'll do it right now. And you'll say no. You'll be like.
I probably will. Yeah, I probably will.
Yeah, because you, in the bottom of your heart,
I'm doing it too.
You don't want to capitulate.
Oh God! All right, pull it up. Can you share the screen? Let's do it. Let's see if I'm gonna reject a trade in real time.
Let me see if it'll let me log in. Sometimes I use the libertarian crypto browser Brave. So sometimes I just randomly can't log in to websites like Pro Football.
So bad.
Pro Football Focus rejects my authentication token every time I try to log in. They're like, you actually can't access our website.
But hey, at least you're decentralized,
At least, okay. The quarantine auction 2023. Keep in mind, I did just trade away one of the picks I probably would have offered you to get some dusty ass running backs.
I missed my window.
Okay, it is letting me in. We're syncing. I've never officially done a trade on air before. It's always been like, yeah, maybe we could do it, and then the person hems and haws, and it never works out.
Well, based on what the first offer was, I don't think that's about to change. But let's see what happens.
Well, my decentralized browser is taking a while to load.
This is the worst. This is promo for Brave. Brave is going to pay you money to never do this again.
It's honestly like the worst browser experience I've ever. It's actually terrible. Okay,
God.
we're in. We're loading up. We're loading up.
As a reminder, ADP chasing sponsored by Brave.
So
Yeah,
the value for Trey Lance is very high. I think I disagree with this.
Oh, now you disagree because you changed it to Superflex. I think what happened.
No. It's showing him with an ADP of 47 in Superflex and a 64 overall ranking in Superflex. That I do not agree with that. That is too high.
Look, he's a starting quarterback with mobility.
I would rather trade for Jordan Love at Jordan Love's price than I would trade for Trey Lance at this price.
I mean, is Jordan Love have better odds of starting after the year? Because
I would say Jordan Love has better odds of being a multi-year starter, but way lower, like almost non-existent odds of ever being a top 5 quarterback. Like never ever.
Trey Lance, if it happens, it's going to be sweet.
Yes,
Jordan Love
I think that's the difference. If Trey Lance happens, it's going to be happens with a capital H. It's going to be like Justin Fields running all over and being like electric. Jordan Love is going to be like winning 17-15 against the Detroit Lions. Like it's like who's going to care?
Is that true though? For like, I hear that all for Lance, but like, why can't Lance just be like Ryan Tannehill?
In a good way?
Yeah, in a good way. Like, why does the ceiling have to be like crazy?
No, you're saying in a bad way.
Because
I'm saying like, can his ceiling be like Ryan Tannehill, like not that great of a passer, like a good runner, but not an elite runner, and like efficient because the offense is schemed well around him? Isn't that basically? What
I don't
Tannehill
think he's
was in the
that. I
Titans?
think he's sort of he's a worse enough passer than Tannehill that I don't think that's plausible.
For him to even be
so you're saying that
be on the field, he has to be so good at running.
Yeah,
is what
he needs to run because if he was a better passer, then yes, but I think he's not good enough as a passer to be Tannehill.
That's basically we're saying like the multi-year Lance starting thesis is like almost entirely contingent on him running for like 80 yards a game or something, like something.
It's like Fields. Like Fields, I think if Fields was better, he would be worse for fantasy because he would run less.
If Fields stopped eating 19 sacks per game and completing 63% of his passes, guess what? You're going to be pissed that you took him in fantasy. Like if the Bears win 8 games this year, all these people who are taking Justin Fields so high are going to be like, fucking got roasted on that one. Like Fields playing a conducive winning style of football is not what you want. What is his ADP in like his ADP in Best Ball Mania 3 is going to be like a second. Yeah, I was going to say like second, third round pick or something like that.
Yeah. Is it that high? Yeah, maybe it is that high. Jeez.
All right. Getting us back on track here slightly. I'll give one.
Wait, so Davis just bailed. For the record, Davis was like, I'll send you a straight offer. I'll go to the rest of the football right now. I'll take 10 minutes to load my Brave browser.
This Trey Lance price, I can't. There's no way. I can't.
He's immediately bailed. that offer you sent me for was definitely not on Superflex settings.
It was probably like what, like a 2024 first and like Pat Fryermuth or something.
I don't even think there was a first involved. I don't even think it was a first. I think it was
if there wasn't a first involved, if there was not a first involved, you were right to say no.
Hang on, I gotta find this thing. I want to find it now.
This is not going to be good. I'm famous. I'm famous for very bad opening offers.
Negotiations 101 right there.
You know what? I think I tried to give you Mac Jones actually.
Oh, that is what it is, dude. It was Mac Jones. I was like, get out of here with Mac.
I'm really trying to get off that bag.
Mac Jones is the same floor as Trey Lance, but zero of the ceiling.
But no ceiling. Like Mac Jones's season-long ceiling is like quarterback 19 fantasy points per game.
Hey Pat, I see you like quarterbacks whose coaches hate their guts. Do you want an immobile version of that?
What were the odds that this 2020 QB draft class, just 3 of them turned to absolute dust, like before even year 3 happened?
Yeah,
like Lance, Zach Wilson, and Mac Jones could all be dust, and that was supposed to be like
kind of goes against Pat's dynasty theory. Because Pat's theory is like you got to
for my theory.
No, your theory is you got to take the guy who goes 108. Like you're going to be like jamming Will Levis this year.
It seems like the Lance Wilson situations feel kind of like anomalies almost. I don't know. The Lance one at least does They're both super weird.
The
how
Lance
quickly
one,
they
the
planned
Lance one
out.
is weird because the team that drafted him never wanted him. Like at no point in the Kyle Shanahan's walking the card up and he's like, I wonder if I can write Mac Jones on this. Like is there a way that I can get out? Like, can I just not do this? He got bullied he literally let like Adam Schefter and Peter King bully him into taking Trey Lance. It's one of the most bizarre stories in the modern NFL.
It's bizarre too that Fields wasn't even in consideration there. Like I never understood that. That was bizarre too.
Dude, there was a rumor that Fields was gay, and that was why teams didn't want him. That was like out there in the ether.
Really?
Wow, I didn't hear that.
Yeah. And he's a vegan, you know? Like it's
Dude,
like
they
there's
hate
like all
vegans. Like what was it? Was
Kaepernick
Aaron
was a
Foster a
vegan.
vegan?
Arian
Kaepernick.
Foster was a vegan.
They hated that.
I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't draft a vegan, so I like.
Wow, that's not very brave browser of you. You know what I mean? It's like
no, I think it is
everyone
very
live their
Brave
own life.
browser. People,
Is it?
people who are using the Brave browser are eating like only
Pete's
meat.
gonna shut this. Pete's gonna shut the show
He's
down
gonna log
pretty
in and
soon.
shut this down.
What
I
happened to the show?
can't find this trade offer. By the way, I was looking at some tweets that I was trying to find like my old position on Kyle Pitts back when he was a rookie or something. And I saw this whole discussion that I'd had with Davis, but every tweet from Davis had been deleted.
I deleted all my tweets from the beginning of Twitter to June 2022.
What? That's so many tweets. Could you do it automatically?
Yeah, I bought like a batch tweet deleter. They did them like 10,000 at a time. So it still took a while.
Did you delete this email from my inbox? I cannot find this offer.
just search Mattek Mac Jones. It'll pull.
Oh, I guess if I search Mac Jones, it should come up.
Yeah. Then I've been around these blocks.
All right. I'm gonna try one thing to get this show back on track. So, what you guys dig this up? Let me know how that trade went. Instead of doing closing line values this week, it's kind of weird. We don't have the Superflex. The ADP is all weird. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give one draft pick that I do when nobody is watching, and you guys are willing to, if you guys are willing to share that, that's cool as well. Or you can do the closing line value thing. But let's do one draft pick that is disgusting and you do it, but you don't want to share that with anyone. Mine right now is the CJ Stroud to Adam Thielen stack.
No.
Why are you doing that?
We had a 30-minute conversation.
I'm doubling down.
Why? Just do it with Jark. That's so much better.
I don't think it's better. So I guess to pull up this chart.
Tommy fucking trembled, dude. Literally.
Oh shit.
He just kicked us off the street.
So this is the whole rationale. Look at this Carolina stack price. Adam Thielen does not have to be good to pay off at how cheap the Panthers are going. And sure, you can take Chark if you want. If you really hate Thielen, take Chark instead. Similar logic. I think there's reasons for Thielen over Chark because of the money, how bad Chark looks on the charting stuff, ankle surgery, blah blah blah. I think there's reasons. If you disagree, I totally hear you. Thielen does not have to have a good season to pay off, just given how cheap this stack price is. Not only how cheap he is, but how cheap Stroud is, particularly in 1 QB, but also Superflex. That, Thielen going 5 for 60 and 2 touchdowns. I think that's going to happen one time this season. If that happens in the right week, it's like a dirt cheap stack that can, I think, provide you a lot of leverage. So that's mine. I know you guys hate it, but yeah.
Here's what I'll say. I, for a long time, said Adam Thielen is playing tight end. It's been about two and a half years now that he's essentially been a tight end. So if your play is just that he has now 5 for 60, I think is the most unrealistic part of that projection, but he 3 for 35 with 2 touchdowns.
3 for 35 and 2.
And they give him tight end eligibility halfway through the year. I'll throw that in. That's in play.
I think but I do think, I mean, he's tailed off for a long time now. We got into this on a previous episode. He was horrendous last year. He turns 33 in August and he's changing teams. That's about as poor of a bet for week 17 production as I think you can make. Now maybe he just helps you get there, but I think I'd rather draft Terrace Marshall. Give me LaVisca Chenault over Adam Thielen, okay? He had a great yards per out run on a limited sample. Great yards per out run.
LaVisca's not happening.
I know he's not happening, but you know what? Adam Thielen isn't either.
No,
All right,
he's
Pat,
not.
you have a gross pick that you do when no one's watching.
Well, I haven't been in these very much, but I do plan to draft Jarrett Stidham, so that'll be my gross pick. That he's literally not.
I don't think that's
rationale
that
there?
Gross. I don't think that's that gross.
It's not gross enough.
It's
You can
pretty
come back
gross.
to me. I can think of something grosser.
I actually have one that I think is even going to shame the Hooper Ertz-Gerald take. And it's for the 6th consecutive year. It's Tyler Higbee, who is just simply going to play every single snap, never sub off. He will never get 100 yards, but he will score 6 touchdowns. And if you get the distribution of those 6 touchdowns correct, I mean, he's going after Juwan Johnson, who isn't even going to be the highest scoring tight end on his own team. And actually, the pick I'm making,
but I can't really argue against
the
it.
pick I'm making that I don't want to talk about is I have yet to be in a draft where Kyle Pitts is on the board after ADP and I haven't taken him. I mean, you're gonna look me in the eye and tell me Kyle Pitts should go in the 7th round sometimes. Like, I simply cannot. Like, I just got to click that button. And I'm only saying that because we're 2 hours into the show and everyone left after I said I wouldn't draft a vegan.
All right, Pat, you got one?
Shit, I just had a name and I don't know if this is gross enough either, but Justin Ross. You mix in some Justin Ross.
No, stop.
Not gross enough?
No, that's gross.
He's literally not going to play.
Okay, all right, it's gross enough. Look, he was really good as a young player, and he's on the Chiefs.
How long ago? Like do the math. Like, when Justin Ross was a young player, how long ago was that?
I don't know. The Obama administration?
Yes, literally yes. Justin Ross.
I don't think literally yes, but it
Justin
was,
Ross's first year at Clemson.
2018.
Okay, it wasn't the Obama administration, but it was 2018.
Yeah, it was 2018. Okay. Yeah,
So
I mean, his
7 years ago was the last time Justin Ross showed promise.
But he's on the Chiefs, Davis.
But we're drafting Sky Moore at like pick 100. So
I would co-sign John Ross over Justin Ross, honestly.
Oh, he's also on the Chiefs practice squad, right?
He is.
I just think that if Ross, so he dealt with these injuries, then he dealt with another injury last year. They immediately redshirted him. It seemed like one of those things where they were looking to redshirt him. You know what I mean? They're like, you're not going to make our team, so let's stash you away.
I mean, we will always have that one clip of them inside the Chiefs training facility in St. Joseph, Missouri, where he did make the one-handed catch on the boundary and Mahomes was hyping him up.
If he's any good at all, he has a chance to emerge. Justin Watson was playing meaningful snaps for this team. If he's any good at all, I think he's got a chance. And you know what? No one's watching when I do it, so I'm going to keep doing it. Can't stop me.
I think that's fair enough. All right, guys, that was a good show. Let's wrap this up. Yeah, I don't know. I can't say it was good at one point for maybe the first.
It had its moments. Much like Justin Ross's career, it started off pretty strong.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back next week. I think Davis is debuting a new vegan chart of all the rookies that breaking down their diets.
You know what? Maybe that's the issue. Maybe Downs and Hyatt and Mims, maybe they just need to get their diet optimized. Like, that's why they're so like they need to up their protein intake.
There's something, man.
Something. Anyways, Pat, now you're doing legendary upside stuff. You got rookie profiles coming out this past week that I've seen. Anything else you've got in the works there on legendary upside?
Yeah, legendary upside rookie wide receiver article that I'm going to have out on Monday, going through kind of my third round rookie pick types, information on Mims and Tillman and guys like Jonathan Mingo. So diving a little bit deeper on those guys. Going to be rolling out a similar type of article for the running back flyers. Also have quarterback and tight end stuff in the works. Still doing a 30-day trial and still doing a $30 discount if you sign up now. So it's for your first year. Takes down to $69 for the year. And got Sean Siegel on the regular free podcast next week. Going to do a mailbag pod as well with Kyle Dvorchak and Liam Murphy. So if you're in the Discord, throw some questions in there for the mailbag pod. That'll be on Thursday.
Awesome.
We should also mention Pete's stream, which I believe is tonight.
He's streaming.
Right?
He's doing best ball breakfast with Leone tomorrow.
I thought it was best ball after dark tonight.
I think it's best ball after dark. But
Damn. All right. I mean, I tried.
Yeah, he's doing best ball after dark tonight. I know the details of it. It's just slipping my mind right now.
It's buried in here. Where is it? He gave us the details and then we talked too much.
He is doing best ball after dark tonight with Leone at 8 p.m. So, sorry.
Nope.
Saturday night.
Saturday night with Leone at 8 p.m. Best ball after dark. That's going to be great. You guys have to be there for that.
The episode he did with Liam was awesome. So
yeah, those have been really fun.
I'm
looking forward to that. Davis, I know you restarted a newsletter right this week. You want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I got tired of not having any place to write my shit or put out rookie rankings or whatever. So we got a little automatic absolutes. We brought it back. I mean, this is before your time. This is probably before you were playing fantasy football, but that used to be the name of my DFS column way back in the day for Fantasy Insiders and for Roto Grinders, like 8 years ago. So it's just a way to kind of show my homage for Soccer Dave and all he's done for my career. You know, I wouldn't be here today without David Kitchen. So that's really it's really important and special.
When are we getting the Kitchen newsletter, the Tree of Kitchen?
I mean, he said he's going to start this dad influencer blog for a long time, and he hasn't done it. So I think he's too busy. He's got too much on his plate.
Awesome, and that's great. So check out Davis's newsletter there, everyone. Highly recommend. And yeah, for me, I'm just coming up with I'm doing more deep dives into best ball strategy and theory. I think I'll do more next week on the Superflex stuff that we talked on now. But I'll just be posting stuff there. And besides that, we will see you guys all next week on ADP Chasing. Thanks for joining us.